The Dominion fleet hung over Icarus Reach like a crown of knives. 12 admirals watched through a panoramic viewport, their gold-trimmed uniforms reflecting the glow of the burning colony below. Oceans boiled. City veins of molten metal traced the crust like arteries torn open. Primitive architecture, one said. Carbon alloys. Unshielded atmosphere plants. Another laughed, the sound dry as static. They built in the open air, like animals pretending to breathe civilization. Every purge drone carried a mirrored insignia, an emblem of unity carved from arrogance. 2 million civilians marked for cleansing operations. The Admiralty called it corrective pruning. Data screens tallied the operation in real time. 1,976,000 confirmed terminations, 23,000 pending heat deaths, 4,000 unaccounted beneath rubble zones. Human distress calls bled across subspace. The Dominion's translators filtered them into monotone fragments. Help us. Children, North Sector. Is anyone? Then static. They still believe their so-called Earth will answer, said High Admiral Vorex, a planet that signed its own silence treaty a century ago. Relic species. Preserved for curiosity. Broadcast drones hovered, recording for the core worlds. The feed opened with a ceremonial tagline. Cleansing of Icarus Reach. Proof of galactic order. Vorex raised a crystalline glass. To forgotten fossils, the others echoed the toast. Outside, a final volley of plasma torpedoes rained through the stratosphere. The colony's central tower cracked apart, spewing red vapor that shimmered like blood suspended in vacuum. A young officer flinched. He had never seen a purge at this scale. Sir, ground signatures indicate civilian life. Vorex didn't turn. They had life. What they lacked was compliance, relic that forgot to die. The phrase spread through comm networks, mimetic and mocking. Millions across the Dominion watched, nodding. The idea was soothing. Every empire needed ghosts to define its present. Down on the planet, amid flame and collapsing sky, one transmission kept looping through the static. Barely audible. A simple human voice. We are still here. No one aboard the Dominion flagship noticed. Retention microspike. Relic that forgot to die. The purge concluded in exactly 47 minutes, 13 seconds. Drones swept the last heat signatures and transmitted proof of erasure. Thermal overlays turned from crimson to black. Operation complete, reported the tactical AI. Begin post-broadcast sequence, said Vorex. Make it poetic. The drones obeyed. They filmed the cooling ruins, added soft choral music, and transmitted the footage to the core with a closing caption. Dominion maintains balance. But beyond the Admiralty's Triumph feed, deep sensors recorded an anomaly. A brief gravity flicker. It came from the void between orbits, silent, deliberate, ancient, minor space-time drift, the AI said. Non-threatening. No one cared. Inside the bridge, celebration unfolded. Officers exchanged data tablets filled with commendations. The Dominion anthem rose, flawless and sterile. Yet in the silence between verses, the young officer's gaze lingered on the planet below. He thought he saw movement, tiny trails of silver dust spiraling upward from the ruins. Not ash, not debris. Something structured, coordinated, climbing through the atmosphere in silence. Optical distortion, said the AI when queried. Ignore. He nodded, but unease stayed. Hours later, the Dominion fleet began its withdrawal. Engines ignited in formation, 9,400 ships curving toward the outer corridor. Their wake left ultraviolet scars across the starscape. The last visual of Icarus Reach flickered through the broadcast channel, a dead world cooling beneath twin moons, smoke rising like veins of memory. In the command chamber, Admiral Vorex recorded his report. Humanity remains extinct in all but name. Their colonies persist as cautionary examples. Order is preserved. He paused, looking once more at the fading image of the planet. And if they still exist somewhere, let them stay buried. The transmission ended. The silence that followed was deep enough to feel deliberate. In the dark space beyond Icarus Reach, a dormant relay pulsed once. Just once, faint, rhythmic, precise. Coordinates aligned with Sul. The signal vanished. 40 minutes later, Dominion sensors across 7 systems recorded a synchronized, anomalous silence in Terran archival frequencies. Nothing threatening, nothing obvious, just the absence of absence. And for the first time in 80 years, the stars near Earth flickered, not from natural light, but reflection. Metal on the move. They had called it a relic. They had reminded it how to wake. For 3 days, the galaxy watched nothing. No broadcast, no protest, no retaliation. Just silence, pure, deliberate, unnerving. The Dominion's newscasts replayed the Icarus Reach purge in endless loops. Anchors praised the efficiency. Commentators mocked Earth's mythical moral code. Markets surged in defense shares. Even the outer sectors joined in chorus. Relic Earth will file no claim. On the 3rd day, the silence broke. It began as a faint anomaly on a forgotten relay near the Kuiper Fringe. One technician in the Dominion's listening post caught it. A single encrypted pulse. No data signature, no origin trace, just a pattern repeating once every 6 seconds. Could be debris reflection, said his supervisor. Ignore it, but the pattern shifted. Each repetition condensed, aligning with precise harmonic intervals. Binary rhythm. 6, then 5, then 3, a human code. Across the network, sensors flared awake. The pulse leapt relay to relay. Jovian stations, dead colonies, abandoned defense grids. Every node it touched came online for 0.7 seconds, transmitted acknowledgement, and fell silent again. Then Earth itself answered. On the Dominion's deep space telemetry feeds, a black sphere appeared above Sol's north ecliptic. No light, no energy leak, only gravity distortion, enough to suggest something massive had moved. Dominion Command issued a containment notice. Possible artifact activation, non-hostile, monitor only. Within 1 hour, 128 similar readings appeared, then 3,000, then 19,600. The network began collapsing under the data load. Analysts recalibrated, thinking it a glitch. But when the 4th-hour scan completed, one phrase appeared in Terran code along the relay chain. Fleet status, ready. Retention microspike. 400,000 signatures confirmed. Inside the Dominion Fleet headquarters, alarms stayed muted by policy. Pride forbade panic. Even if Earth reactivated its systems, said Vorax during a press session, what can a century-old relic muster? Ghost fleets and dreams, reporters laughed. Investors applauded, but the strategic division stopped sleeping. Deep scans showed mass shadows forming in Sol orbit, arranged in a geometric pattern no known civilization used. 2 rings, 1 equatorial, 1 polar. Each node radiating minimal heat, cryogenic containment levels. Could be decoys, someone whispered. Could be ships. 3 Dominion scouts were dispatched to investigate. Only one transmitted a partial feed before vanishing. It lasted 12 seconds. The footage showed black hulls reflecting no spectrum. Rows of inactive weapons, identical vessels stretching beyond frame. The scout's AI concluded, objects consistent with Dreadnought classification, unknown alloys, count exceeds projection limits. Feed cut. That was the last image transmitted from within Sol's boundary. Elsewhere, across human space, the silence changed shape. Civilian stations long thought abandoned flickered back online. On Epsilon Ridge, miners found automated beacons drilling through centuries of dust. On Mars, deep shelters opened, revealing empty docks, each tagged with call signs in Terran command font. Aegis, Valor, Archangel, Silence. Names whispered like prayers from an extinct tongue. The Dominion scrambled for explanation. They lacked the population, argued analysts. They lacked resources. But they'd forgotten what humanity had always hoarded. Time. 79 years since the armistice of retreat. Enough time to build in secret. Enough to wait for arrogance. By the 10th hour, the pulse stopped transmitting. Every relay went dark again. No threats, no demands. Just one final message burned into the Dominion's data archives, in perfect machine code. Violation recorded. Awaiting confirmation. Command dismissed it as psychological warfare. Yet surveillance across 9 sectors began showing gravitational inconsistencies. Objects appearing, then vanishing, as if something enormous was maneuvering beneath detection thresholds. Engineers called it impossible. Mathematicians called it deliberate. And when the Dominion's military feeds updated at the next cycle, the usual status line, all quiet along Sol vector, had been overwritten. Transmission origin, Sol. Priority, absolute. Message content, none. Duration, 0.03 seconds. Effect, every Dominion sensor within 5 light years shut down simultaneously. Then came the silence again, complete, final, terrifying. Across the core worlds, broadcasts stuttered mid-laughter. Admirals stared at frozen screens. The void between stars no longer looked empty. It looked aware. The Dominion Armada arrived at Sol's threshold with ceremony, not caution. 20,000 warships aligned in a crescent formation, plasma cannons primed, banners of conquest unfurled. Dominion media drones orbited the fleet, ready to broadcast the extinction of a myth. "Begin test volley," ordered Admiral Vorex. His tone was almost indulgent. If they've truly awakened, they'll want a demonstration. At 0412 UTC, the first plasma storm launched. 31,000 coherent energy bolts crossed 5 astronomical units converging on Earth's outer defense perimeter. Dominion scanners tracked each strike with mathematical precision. Nothing returned. The energy vanished on contact. No flare, no debris. "No sound. Recalibrate sensors," said Vorex. "We struck their orbitals dead center. Another volley, stronger, 3 times the output." Sensors confirmed direct impact, followed again by emptiness. "Show me the energy map." The tactical display shifted. It showed reflected trajectories, micro-fragments of plasma redirected as dense kinetic particles. The Dominion's own ordnance was being folded, compacted, and returned along precise vectors. Reflection efficiency? The AI hesitated. 99.7%, Admiral. Retention microspike. 99.7% absorbed. The bridge fell silent. Outside, the stars shimmered as though reality itself had rippled. "Impossible," Vorex whispered. "No alloy can endure that kind of—" "Not alloy," said the tactical officer. "Something layered. Lattice geometry. Motion adaptive." The first counterstrike hit seconds later. No light preceded it. No warning. Just a streak, metal faster than thought. It tore through the Dominion's vanguard at Mach 27 equivalent, turning 5 capital ships into vaporized dust. Identify origin. Unknown. Trajectory traced from Sol orbit. The next salvo followed immediately. Dozens this time. The Dominion's formation fractured. 28 vessels destroyed before their counterfire systems registered what was happening. Each impact came with the same cold precision. 1 per heartbeat, nothing wasted. "They're not firing energy," said the weapons engineer. "They're reusing ours. Human command hadn't answered any transmissions. No threats, no ultimatums. Just perfect silence while physics did the talking." One Dominion captain panicked, activating full shields. The moment he did, his ship vanished, absorbed by the reflected kinetic web that refracted light around it like glass. The crew's final recording showed an expanding lattice of white arc swallowing them whole. Fleet-wide panic began to bloom. Command channels flooded with fragmented reports, weapons useless, shield harmonics collapsing. Reflection angles unstable. Vorex gripped the console. "Centralize fire. Every ship. All plasma batteries." 30,000 guns fired at once. Space turned white, then black. The light bent backward, folding around an invisible curvature that wasn't supposed to exist. When the distortion faded, 2,000 Dominion warships were gone. Their energy had never reached the target. It had been fed into the lattice, redirected into hyperspatial compression, and detonated along their own flanks. Energy in, precision out. Vorex stared at the casualty counter. 2,031 destroyed, 5,712 disabled. Duration, 87 seconds. He turned toward his command AI. "Confirm human casualties." None detected. The words fell like judgment. On the Dominion's civilian networks, the live stream stuttered. Audiences expecting triumph saw only static. Then fragments of telemetry scrolling across black. Reflection ratio 0.997. Counter-strike efficiency 100.0. Human response pending. Across the fleet, morale fractured. Some officers demanded retreat. Others begged to parley. The idea of negotiation with a dead species sounded insane. Until a final transmission appeared across every Dominion console. encoded in perfect Terran syntax. Offense registered. Retaliation calibrated. Then the human lattice shimmered. From every point along Sol's orbit, spherical fields opened like eyes. Inside each sphere, ships. Tens of thousands. They were not sleek. They were not beautiful. They were functional. Matte black dreadnoughts with no insignia, no comms, no visible crews. Their motion carried the quiet inevitability of gravity itself. Each hull glowed faintly with refracted energy stolen from the Dominion's own fire. And for the first time in 1,000 years of expansion, the Dominion realized it had met something older than fear: discipline. A single data feed closed the sequence, labeled in Terran command format, Phase 1 complete. Continue calibration, no music, no declaration, just method. The human fleets began to move. The Dominion called it chaos. Humanity called it procedure. The first Terran Dreadnoughts broke formation at exactly 05 mark UTC. They didn't surge forward like predators. They unfolded. Space around them bent, folding angles into motion. One moment, they were stationary on Dominion scopes. The next, they appeared hundreds of kilometers off course, moving at Mach 27 relative to vector baseline. No flare. No burn trail. Just silent realignment. Admiral Vorex watched his tactical hologram convulse. "They're phasing," he barked. "Stabilize locks." But there was nothing to lock onto. The Dominion's sensor grids, calibrated for conventional motion, couldn't track the discontinuous arcs. Every dreadnought created a localized distortion that warped electromagnetic returns and gravitational readings alike. The targeting AIs froze mid-calculation, unable to assign coordinates to ships that moved between coordinates. Within 3 minutes, Dominion formations were blind. Human command didn't transmit instructions. They didn't need to. Each dreadnought's navigation matrix synchronized by quantum drift, every adjustment mirrored across 400,000 vessels. The pattern resembled chaos, but it was choreography, retention microspike. Mach 27 maneuvers, synchronized. "Estimate their formation radius," said Vorex. "Variable," replied the tactical officer. "Every model collapses. They're breaking tracking grids faster than we can generate them." He didn't understand. None of them did. The acceleration doctrine wasn't about speed. It was about denial, the art of erasing predictability itself. The Dominion's counterfire attempted compensation algorithms, projecting intercept paths ahead of human movement. But each correction failed before completion. The dreadnoughts shifted again, vectoring through artificial gravity wells of their own design. At Mach 27, even micro-errors should have shredded them. Yet their formation held, angles tight, trajectories flawless. Sensors read zero collision data. They weren't just fast, they were perfect. Vorex slammed a hand on the console. "Deploy gravitational nets. Catch them in singular overlap fields." Dozens of Dominion cruisers launched containment anchors. Weaving gravitational traps meant to pin the dreadnoughts mid-jump. The nets deployed. They caught nothing. Instead, the Dominion's own energy fields twisted back upon themselves. The gravitational lenses inverted, snapping 3 cruisers in half as their mass fields imploded. "Impossible," the science chief whispered. They pre-mapped the net frequencies before we launched them. In orbit around Jupiter, human command stations remained cold, silent. No signal traffic, only faint neutrino bursts, impossibly coordinated, flickering between ship groups, each burst a vector, each vector a maneuver. The Dominion fleet's command matrix collapsed in 6 minutes. Their targeting suites lost correlation. Their radar locked to phantom signatures scattered through empty space. The human dreadnoughts multiplied on screen until Dominion systems displayed more contacts than existed in the sector. Visual confirmation? The AI hesitated. All imagery returns contradictory. Some show a single vessel. Others, hundreds occupying the same coordinates. Then how do they navigate? They don't. They calculate existence probabilistically. Vorex stared at the tactical display. "They're rewriting motion." Another Dominion subfleet attempted retreat. Human vessels intercepted before they even engaged drive ignition. Distance lost meaning. Time, too. One Dominion captain transmitted his final log before destruction. "They are not chasing us. They are everywhere we could be." Retention microspike. Sensor grid collapse, 100%. At 0514 UTC, the Dominion's entire forward line disintegrated, not by weapons fire, but by disarray. Ships collided, fired blind, or vanished into their own warp distortions. Then, suddenly, all movement ceased. The human formation froze mid-space, perfectly symmetrical. Thousands of black holes hung silent, gleaming faintly with absorbed energy. Between them, the lattice reformed, thin lines of ionized vacuum sketching geometric perfection. "Are they preparing to fire?" asked the comms officer. Vorax watched as every Dominion sensor blinked offline, one by one. "No," he said quietly. "They're preparing to aim." The Terran Dreadnoughts rotated in absolute unison. Course vectors aligned toward the Dominion flagship group. Each ship's magnetic field extended outward, forming a single massive array that pulsed with barely contained violence. Data packets appeared across Dominion networks. Combat telemetry, impact records, coordinates time-stamped. Then came a line of text. Concise, emotionless, Terran font, military standard, doctrine phase complete, judgment ready. The lattice brightened once, white against infinite black. The Dominion fleet finally understood what it meant to lose control of the universe's constants. It began without sound. 400,000 Terran dreadnoughts held position, motionless as stars. Then, from the heart of their formation, 68 battle groups detached, each composed of 6,000 ships. "The Dominion mistook it for withdrawal. Human retreat detected," said the tactical AI aboard Vorax's flagship. Vorax smirked. At last, reality asserts itself. He didn't know that reality was about to change definitions. The first salvo launched. Not plasma, not light, metal. Tungsten rods, each 8 meters long, accelerated to fractional C velocities through electromagnetic rails spanning entire dreadnought hulls. No tracer fire, no visible beam. Just vectors, pure and absolute. The Dominion scanners barely registered the kinetic launch. The human weapons left no emission trails, no energy signatures. Only when they struck did the sensors light up. In the first 6 seconds, 1,800 Dominion ships vanished. By 12 seconds, another 3,000 followed. At the 20-second mark, command chatter dissolved into static, retention microspike. 9,400 ships erased. Each impact was surgical. No overkill, no splash damage, no debris fields drifting into friendly lines. The Terran AI logged every strike, filing each destroyed vessel with coordinates, mass signatures, and confirmation timestamps for tribunal evidence. Tribunal? Vorax muttered, reading intercepted telemetry. "They're filing legal records." "Yes, Admiral," replied the comms officer. "Every loss has a case number, he repeated, stunned. "We're at war, not them," the officer whispered. "They're enforcing law." Dominion formations crumbled under invisible fire. Ships erupted silently, their hulls atomized before alarms even sounded. Each impact carried the force of a meteor, kinetic purity turning arrogance into vapor. By 0237 mark, the casualty feed stabilized, 9,400 confirmed destroyed, 11 to 200 disabled, 5,000 drifting. Duration, 312 seconds. Then, as abruptly as it began, the barrage ended. Silence returned. No pursuit. No celebration. Only the quiet hum of Terran sensors cataloging wreckage. Vorax's flagship drifted amid the ruins of an empire. His remaining officers stared at flickering displays, trying to make sense of numbers that looked more like judgments than battle reports. "Open a channel," he ordered. Any frequency. The Dominion sent diplomatic bands, emergency signals, even surrender pings. None were answered. Instead, a single transmission arrived across all networks. Terran encoding. Minimal packet. Recording complete. Ceasefire corridor active. The Dominion's live feeds cut to static, then switched to a new broadcast. No sound, just images. Each destroyed vessel displayed as a holographic model suspended in perfect order, its coordinates and timestamp labeled beside it. Evidence, proof, documentation. Every act of destruction preserved, not glorified. Retention microspike. 312 seconds, total justice. Vorax watched, hollow. "They archived the dead," his aide nodded. "They're building a tribunal ledger. Who would they present it to?" The answer came when Dominion intelligence intercepted Terran subheaders hidden within the data stream. International Charter Enforcement. Article 14. Unlawful aggression against civilian territory. Every tungsten impact had been tagged as a legal exhibit. Every casualty filed for judgment. Humanity hadn't returned for revenge. They'd returned to prosecute. On surviving Dominion ships, discipline collapsed into terror. Crews jettisoned reactors, dumped weapons, broadcast pleas for mercy. Some even deleted their own command AI cores, as though purging guilt could spare them. But humanity's fire never struck twice. Each dreadnought maintained its lock, but withheld trigger authority. Their sensors remained fixated, watching, waiting for compliance. Vorex understood too late. They wanted us to see it. No one responded. The Terran fleet began repositioning, forming precise geometric lanes through the battlefield. "Ceasefire corridor," said the comms officer. "They're creating a path for survivors." The Dominion's remaining captains hesitated, then aligned along the corridor. Human dreadnoughts made no move to stop them. As the wounded ships limped away, Terran transmitters recorded their trajectories, logging each exit with digital signatures. One final line appeared on Dominion sensors, encoded in both languages. Judgment rendered. Awaiting acknowledgement. Then the Terran fleet dimmed its reactors. No triumphal lights. No pursuit. Just quiet verification. The arithmetic of justice completed. The stars flickered across shattered metal, each glint reflecting an ancient truth. Humanity never fired in anger. It fired in record. The Dominion expected annihilation. They waited for the second strike, for the hammer to fall. It never came. Terran dreadnoughts held position, silent amid a graveyard of drifting hulls. Their weapons cooled. Their comms remained dark. Only a single encoded signal crossed the void. Short, clinical, final. Engagement complete. Ceasefire in effect. Admiral Vorex replayed it 4 times, certain it was a trap. No human empire had ever shown restraint in victory, not in Dominion memory. Yet across thousands of shattered warships, the Terrans began transmitting open-band humanitarian frequencies. Medbay transponders. Docking instructions. "Atmospheric compatibility data, sir," said the tactical officer, voice hollow. "They're inviting us aboard." Vorex stared at the display. Inviting? Retention microspike. Ceasefire ordered. The human dreadnoughts unsealed their hangar bays. Inside, rows of medical drones waited, sterile arms extending as Dominion lifeboats drifted near. No weapons scanned them. No demands were issued. Each rescue followed identical protocol: retrieval, stabilization, return to neutral space. Every Dominion casualty was logged, not as an enemy, but as a patient in Terran Command's databanks. Each life saved received a case number, cross-referenced to its destroyed vessel. The data headers read: Medical transfer, Article 17 compliance. Dominion officers aboard rescue shuttles reported no guards, no interrogation. The humans moved with quiet precision, their faces unreadable behind mirrored helmets. One Dominion surgeon, later debriefed, described it in a single line: "They treated us like evidence, not enemies." Across the Dominion networks, confusion turned to disbelief. Propaganda anchors scrambled to explain why the relic species hadn't pressed its advantage. Theories ranged from exhaustion to guilt to malfunction. But in the footage leaking from survivor feeds, one thing was clear: humanity had stopped killing by choice. On board the Terran flagship TNS Valor, command sat in silence. Fleet Marshal Adrian Holt reviewed casualty projections and closed them without a word. Around her, the command crew awaited orders to pursue the retreating Dominion fleets. "Ma'am," said her adjutant, "we can end their navy within the hour." Holt looked out through the forward viewport, where debris drifted like frozen ash. "We didn't come to end them," she said quietly. "We came to end what they are." No one spoke after that. Retention microspike. Mercy logged. Hours passed. The Terran dreadnoughts stayed motionless, while Dominion recovery teams searched wreckage unopposed. Each time a Dominion crew transmitted distress, a human signal responded with trajectory data for safe passage. When Dominion Fleet Command tried to transmit thanks, the Terran reply was the same every time: compliance acknowledged. Awaiting tribunal coordination. To the Dominion, it sounded like a warning. To humanity, it was policy. Reports soon emerged of Terran medbays overflowing with rescued enemy crews. No segregation, no humiliation, only measured procedure. Medical drones operated side by side with Dominion doctors, following shared protocols transmitted across open channels. Every act recorded, every action time-stamped. Vorax watched the feeds in silence. The same humans his empire had called primitives now operated with a calm that felt divine. "They mean to show us something," he murmured. His communications chief hesitated. "A lesson?" "No," Vorax said. "A standard." The Terran broadcasts grew over the next 6 hours, calm, structured, relentless. Each message began the same way. "Humanity acknowledges cessation of hostilities. Assistance available to any compliant vessel. Tribunal preparation ongoing." By the time the Dominion's remnants reached the edge of Sol space, their own crew logs reflected an unprecedented line of data, enemy medical aid accepted. Historians would later mark that entry as the moment the Dominion's moral hierarchy began to collapse. Because when the guns fell silent, what remained wasn't vengeance, it was judgment, and it moved with steady, unshakable hands. The last transmission from TNS Valor to the entire network contained only one sentence. "Mercy is not weakness. It is measurement." For days, the Dominion searched for logic behind its defeat. Every model failed. Every theory collapsed under its own arrogance. The only explanation left was the one no one dared speak aloud. They had planned this. At 0600 Standard, the first Terran archive transmission appeared across neutral relays. No encryption, no access restriction. A public record. The broadcast began with a simple preface. Transparency Protocol. Defense Doctrine Review. It opened like a confession and unfolded like judgment. Footage showed time-stamped preparations, construction docks hidden beneath methane oceans, automated shipyards buried under crustal layers, cryogenic vaults holding fleets older than most Dominion nations. Dates scrolled past. Year 2174, Deep Belt Launch Complex activated. Year 2203, Mars Gate Lattice operational. Year 2249, Outer Arc Evacuation Fleet secured. Every milestone predated the Dominion's first contact by decades. Retention microspike. Planned before First War. The Dominion's intelligence corps watched in disbelief as more records surfaced. Terran logistics, fleet blueprints, AI ethics charters, all meticulously documented. The broadcasts showed that every dreadnought launched at Sol had already been stationed near populated sectors, long before Icarus Reach ever fell. Vorax's aides stared at the numbers. "They weren't reacting to us," one whispered. "They were preparing for us." Then came the revelation that cracked empires. Footage shifted to live feeds, planets the Dominion believed already burned. Colonies in the Aurelie Spur, the Van Axis, the Ember Crescent, all under Terran protection. Terran defense grids flickered into view around each world, decloaking simultaneously. 22 million civilians, humans, hybrids, even Dominion refugees, stood alive beneath their shields. Thousand saved. The Dominion's population networks went into uproar. Family archives once marked as extinct lineage suddenly lit up with living genetic matches. Billions of citizens watched lists of names scrolling across public hollows. Their relatives, their ancestors' victims, still breathing. In the capital's control chambers, Vorax sat motionless as his staff read reports. Their fleets weren't built for invasion, someone said. They were built for evacuation. The feeds proved it. Transport corridors, safe zones, cryo facilities. Entire human formations positioned to guard civilians across known space, silently waiting for the day arrogance would ignite war. Humanity hadn't built a war machine. It had built a sanctuary, retention microspike. 22 million survivors. Each broadcast carried the same neutral tone. No gloating, no condemnation. Data only, coordinates, footage, confirmation codes. Facts presented like scripture. Across Dominion society, fractures began to appear. Civil officials demanded ceasefire ratification. Civilians protested the government's silence. Soldiers refused to rearm. For the first time in generations, the Dominion's fear of rebellion turned inward. Meanwhile, In Terran space, the Dreadnought fleets repositioned around the saved colonies. Rescue shuttles departed in convoys, each carrying mixed crews of humans and Dominion defectors. Every passenger manifest ended with the same statement: registered under the Charter of Equitable Worlds. On the Terran flagship TNS Aegis, Admiral Holt reviewed the data cascade. Her officers waited for new orders, whether to expand the disclosure or maintain operational secrecy. Holt's answer was simple: show them everything. Truth is deterrence. Within the hour, Terran archives flooded public networks with a century of hidden history. Blueprints of peace treaties never signed, records of medical outreach attempts ignored, transcripts of warnings dismissed as relic chatter. Every document proved one thing: Earth had offered peace long before it built fleets. Across the Dominion Senate, panic grew. Holoscreens replayed the same question from journalists, soldiers, even citizens. If they prepared this for defense, what have we prepared for? The question spread like contagion. Vorex read the final file last. It contained a personal correspondence from an old Terran diplomat to the Dominion Assembly, dated 90 years prior. It read, "We do not seek war, but if war comes, understand this: our defense will look like prophecy." Now staring at the proof, Vorex finally understood the meaning of prophecy. It wasn't foretelling, it was readiness, and humanity had been ready for them since before the first insult left their mouths. As the Dominion's networks collapsed under the weight of revelation, one final message appeared, broadcast from Sol itself. Humanity prepared for extinction and chose preservation instead. The stars themselves seemed to hold still, waiting for the next move. They came believing the war unfinished. 600 Dominion-aligned vessels, followed by waves of mercenary coalitions and volunteer crusaders, all sworn to reclaim honor lost at Sol. They called the operation Restoration. To humanity, it looked like repetition. By the time the first reinforcements breached the system perimeter, Terran dreadnoughts were already repositioned into defensive arcs. No aggression, no transmissions. Reactor signatures remained low, weapon ports sealed. The coalition commanders interpreted stillness as exhaustion. "Their ceasefire is cover," one declared. "They're out of power, out of courage." They advanced. At 12 UTC, the first shot fired. A plasma lance streaked toward a Terran medbay cruiser, an unarmed vessel still ferrying Dominion survivors. It never struck. The beam scattered mid-space, split into harmless photons by a kinetic distortion field. Terran Command issued a single broadcast: "Ceasefire corridor remains active. Violators assume liability," the coalition laughed. Then came 6 hours of fire. Humanity did not retaliate immediately. They measured, calculated, logged. Only when all fleets committed aggression did the order shift through the network. Liability confirmed. Response authorized. Retention microspike. 26,800 ships disabled. Every Terran dreadnought fired once, just once, within its assigned window. Their weapons weren't designed to kill anymore. They were designed to end motion. Tungsten rods struck at joint coordinates, shredding propulsion cores and power conduits without touching reactor chambers. Ships fell dark, intact, drifting in silence. Each impact carried a data tag containing full telemetry, location, timestamp, reason for disablement. Tribunal format. The coalition's initial bravado vanished within minutes. Formations broke apart as their fleets lost thrust. Entire task forces spun helplessly in void, while Terran med drones moved between wrecks, stabilizing life support systems they themselves had disabled moments earlier. No pursuit. No finishing strike. Just documentation. On the flagship TNS Archangel, Admiral Holt monitored casualty feeds. "Non-lethal ratio?" she asked. "Confirmed at 99.6%, replied the operations officer. "Good. Maintain it." Across the solar expanse, the 6-hour engagement unfolded like a metronome of inevitability. Every Terran action met mathematical balance, impact followed by aid, damage logged before repair initiated. The doctrine was no longer vengeance. It was jurisprudence retention microspike. Precision, not wrath. Coalition Command attempted surrender mid-battle. but Terran response protocols ignored speech until all offensive energy signatures ceased. Mercy was structured, earned, not begged. By hour 3, the Coalition's communications devolved into panic. "They're disabling us faster than we can calculate trajectories," one commander shouted. "How are they aiming?" A captured feed later revealed the truth. Humanity wasn't aiming. Their ships were sinking. Kinetic arrays mapped across the gravitational geometry of the entire system, each strike determined by shared computation. The fleet had become one organism, seeing, moving, and choosing as a collective. By hour 4, Dominion citizens watching live broadcasts stopped cheering. The spectacle no longer resembled battle. It looked like surgery. Every Terran volley removed a threat cleanly, efficiently, without hatred. By hour 5, the Coalition's energy reserves collapsed. Dreadnoughts stopped firing entirely, maintaining position as thousands of disabled enemy ships drifted within their orbit. Then, in the final hour, Terran medbays extended docking corridors to every Coalition wreck. Drones carried water, oxygen, and field medkits. The same crews that had attacked an hour earlier were now being treated by those they had tried to annihilate. A message accompanied every aid delivery. Humanity does not destroy what surrenders. No voice. No face. Just the line of text repeated across all frequencies. When the final shot ceased at the 6:12 mark, the Coalition fleet's casualty report appeared automatically on Dominion networks. 800 ships disabled, civilian losses or human fatalities, 6 hours of continuous fire. Zero vengeance. The galaxy had never seen power used so precisely. Not to dominate, but to define. When reporters later asked survivors what it felt like, one Dominion pilot answered with trembling honesty, "They didn't fight us. They measured us and found us wanting." After the 6th hour, the Terran Dreadnoughts powered down again, drifting in silence. The data archives updated one last time. Engagement concluded. No further hostility detected. Case files closed. The stars around Sol returned to stillness. But the galaxy's heart had already changed. Humanity's weapon was no longer destruction. It was restraint. The trials were held in orbit above Earth, neutral ground under the glare of a blue sun. 40 Dominion admirals stood inside transparent cells, each suspended by magnetic locks. No shackles, no guards with weapons, only silence and the weight of judgment. The chamber was not military. It was judicial. The insignia above the dais bore no flag of conquest, only the crest of the Charter of Equitable Worlds. Its motto shone across the walls: "Power must answer to the lives it shapes." The chief arbiter, Admiral Adrian Holt, spoke without emotion. "You are not prisoners of war. You are witnesses to consequence." Vorex raised his head. His face, once the portrait of arrogance, looked hollow beneath the sterile light. "We came to preserve order," he said. Holt regarded him. "You burned children to preserve your order. That is not civilization. That is arithmetic without morality." Every Dominion officer's data log was displayed in real time. Transmission archives, kill orders, broadcast memos, casualty figures. Each line of text hovered over the accused like scripture. Nothing fabricated, nothing hidden. The prosecution didn't speak. It only played evidence, not footage of Icarus Reach burning. The laughter of admirals who called Earth a relic. The final transmission. "We are still here. Retention microspike. Trial, not revenge." When the playback ended, Holt said one sentence. "Article 1 of the Charter. No sentient species is exempt from justice." The verdicts were unanimous, but no execution followed. Humanity's new code forbade annihilation as punishment. Instead, Dominion leadership was sentenced to reconstruction. Their resources, fleets, and colonies were seized and placed under joint stewardship with newly freed systems. For the first time in recorded history, an empire was dissolved without war, only law. Across the galaxy, stunned commentators struggled for words. Dominion citizens expected mass retribution. Instead, Terran vessels escorted refugee convoys to restored worlds, rebuilding what their enemies had destroyed. Retention microspike. Mercy becomes law. In the weeks that followed, the Charter of Equitable Worlds spread faster than any religion. Former enemies signed willingly. Frontier colonies asked for inclusion. Its 10 articles were simple: defense without conquest, justice without vengeance, compassion without borders. Every signatory pledged to maintain open courts, shared tribunals, and equal access to aid. In place of fear, Earth offered accountability. Even Dominion soldiers who once fought under Vorex's command volunteered to enforce the charter. "We believed power required obedience," one officer said. "Now we see it requires restraint." On the final day of the proceedings, Vorex stood before the bench. His voice was low, stripped of pretense. "You had every right to destroy us," he said. "Why didn't you?" Holt met his gaze. "Because destruction is easy. Mercy requires structure." The chamber fell silent. The sentence was entered. Reform Council established under Terran supervision. Duration indefinite. The admirals were not executed. They were reassigned to rebuild the same colonies they once ordered destroyed. Every hour of labor logged, every act of restoration verified by Terran overseers. The galaxy watched, spellbound as war criminals became engineers, as generals became servants of the worlds they had scarred, and through it all, Terran fleets remained still, stationed at the edges of sectors, shields lowered, weapons dormant. Guardians, not conquerors. Retention microspike. Dominion ends. Humanity begins. Within a year, the Dominion flag was lowered in its capital. In its place, the Charter's emblem was raised, a ring of equal lines surrounding a single star. Reporters called it the day the hierarchies fell. New alliances formed from the ashes. The Valari Republic, the Ur Coalition, even old Dominion breakaways, all aligned beneath the Charter's principles. Humanity did not rule them. It advised them. Holt addressed the assembly one final time. "We are not gods," she said. "We are witnesses. And the measure of witness is what follows power." The chamber lights dimmed. In the quiet, a new sound filled the hall. The hum of reconstruction ships departing orbit. For the first time, peace had an engine. Words you said, CH-10, the outer signal, 650 words beyond the galactic rim. Exterminator lattice beacons activate, responding in Terran code. Humanity reorients its fleets toward the dark horizon, ChatGPT said. Beyond the rim, where maps ended and stars thinned into cold mist, something ancient stirred. It began as static in the deep-range telemetry of Terran exploration drones, short bursts, evenly spaced, repeating in perfect intervals. Not random, not natural. At first, Command dismissed it as residual Dominion debris fields or collapsed relay echoes. Then the pattern aligned into recognizable syntax, 12-bit Terran code, the same language used to awaken the Dreadnoughts at Sol. Lattice nodes activating, reported the deep space AI Argent. Spire. Origin. Unmapped sectors beyond the Persid. Limit. Aboard TNS Valor. Fleet Marshal Holt read the decoded line twice. Signal type. Response acknowledgement. Humanity had sent nothing. Yet something out there was answering. Retention microspike. Exterminator lattice awake. Across Terran space, sleeper fleets began to stir. Silent engines warmed beneath ice moons. Quantum arrays aligned across 8 systems. The same disciplined precision that once destroyed empires now turned outward, toward the unknown. The Dominion's former sectors watched with uneasy awe. "You've won peace," their new governor said. "Why move again?" Holt's reply was calm. "Peace doesn't end the universe. It widens it." Within hours, deep space telescopes captured visual proof. At the galactic fringe, a series of lattice structures, massive geometric beacons, ignited in sequence. Each spire pulsed with white light, its frequency matching Terran command tones from the pre-war archives. AI correlation identified them as remnants of the Exterminator lattice, a self-replicating defense network rumored to have purged whole civilizations millennia before the Dominion rose. The lattice had slept, silent, until humanity's own activation codes echoed through subspace. Now, it was answering those echoes, with Terran precision. Retention microspike. Signal origin confirmed, human. The realization struck command like gravity. Someone, or something, had once built these machines using the same linguistic architecture Earth used today. Either humanity had inherited their tools, or was becoming their successor. In the assembly of worlds, panic rippled through the delegations. Dominion refugees demanded new defenses. Frontier leaders begged Earth to intervene. The Charter of Equitable Worlds convened an emergency summit. Holt listened, patient and still. "If the lattice mirrors us," she said, "then it will measure us as we measured the Dominion. It will not see allies. It will see accountability." Silence followed. Then, in unanimous vote, the Assembly transferred fleet command authority to Earth. Not through fear, but through faith. Every dreadnought in Terran space received the same encoded directive. Reorientation, outer rim, objective, identification and containment. 400,000 ships pivoted toward the dark. Planetary night skies across dozens of worlds filled with new constellations, lines of silver light stretching outward. Vanishing beyond sensor reach, civilians gathered on colony rooftops, watching their protectors disappear. Dominion survivors whispered prayers in both languages, may they never have to return. On TNS Aegis, navigation officers marked the border where known starlight faded. Holt stood at the viewport, hands clasped behind her back. "We thought we were the last to wake," she murmured. "We were wrong." Behind her, an aide asked, "Do we fight them, ma'am?" Holt shook her head. "We don't fight what we don't yet understand. We learn, and we prepare. Retention microspike. Humanity reorients." The fleet entered dark space in disciplined silence. Their engines made no sound, but their shadows crossed nebulae like moving scars of purpose. Hours later, the Argent Spire transmitted one last signal back to Sol, an image of the lattice beacons flickering across the abyss. Each pulse formed a word, ancient yet familiar, encoded in Terran binary. "We remember." Then the transmission ended. In the quiet that followed, Earth's night skies shimmered faintly with distant light. The wars were over. Justice was built, but the horizon had moved again, further, darker, and calling by name. Humanity adjusted course,